I went back home, jumped on the computer, just closed my eyes literally and just like clicked yes, I accept, I accept, I accept, I accept. My brother had just went, but he's, he knows what he wants and he goes and gets it. So he had already left to BYU. Like he was already there. He'd started in a summer semester. He was having a blast. He was like, hey man, you got to come out here. There's all these cool people. I'm like, all right, I'm coming. I went to the apartment complex that he was staying at. And I just signed a contract. I didn't even think about it. Paid a deposit. Just boom, boom, boom. Got a plane ticket. I'm set. Here I'm going. And I can tell you one thing, that was probably some of the most stressful moments of my life. Like I was shaking. I was like not sure if this was it. Like, what am I doing? But literally like taking that one leap at 21 years old was like honestly one of the best decisions ever. It opened the whole world, like opened a whole new world of things for me. And, you never know what you are going to get when you walk through a door. It's not to say that I wouldn't have walked through other doors had I not like accepted BYU, but this one was certainly a catalyst. It was bigger than other decisions I think I had along the way. Like this one was big. And it's kind of like, like maybe I could have stayed and gone to like some mediocre industrial design school or like college and might have been like the top student, right? But why not try to go to a place like BYU and then try to be the top student at a place where you're going to come in probably the underdog, and that was like legitimately the case. Like when I got there, I wasn't like the all city, art student anymore. I wasn't the governor's school art student. I wasn't like, the kid who had parents in industrial design who had kind of taught their kids, like, I hadn't even been to IKEA. I didn't know what any of this stuff was. Like, so to come from like a very fine arts oriented background and then trying to like spin that into something that's a little more, precise, a little bit more mechanical, a little bit more theoretical, was very hard. But I will say, I really do believe that it was the right time for me to be at BYU. When I got there, the first day of class, professor walks in. He looks like Poindexter. He's got glasses, kind of funky hair. He's wearing like a plaid shirt and like, oh man, I think cargo pants and stuff. And I'm like, who is this guy? And again, kind of that chip on my shoulder type of thing. I'm like, I'm a Virginia boy. I'm coming all the way across the country, 1,800 miles. I'm the crap, you know what I'm saying? Like I really did feel like I was it. Like, and I was going to prove everybody like Winchester's legit. If you don't know what Winchester is, you need to go find it. Even though like no one cared. But, I quickly realized like who this guy was, even though I still didn't care. Like, no, you're not going to tell me anything. But essentially like he comes into class first day, first hour. There's like 30 of us, maybe 40. I don't know. BYU ID people with me. Essentially he says something like, here's how it's going to run. There's 30 people, 40, whatever. We only admit 20. There's another 30 coming in spring, summer. This is fall, winter. So we got like 70 kids, 20 spots. So here's how this is going to run. By the end of the semester, we're going to give everybody a rank, 1 to 15. You can keep coming. Basically you want to be in that 1 to 8 range, 8 to 15, you can keep coming, but you're gonna have to work pretty hard. Anything below 15, you might as well drop out. And so that's a pretty intimidating thing to hear, like straight out the gate. So I immediately realized like, look, I don't have any other plans. Like I came here for this. I didn't come here for anything else. So I'm dedicating myself. And then he said, okay, after the end of fall semester and spring and summer, your portfolio is due. Of all the work that you've done over the course of this school year, you'll get a little advantage that you have spring and summer to finish your portfolio. And then spring and summer will have to do their portfolio as they do their work. That's kind of the thing that they have. You also have a little bit longer to create your stuff because you have an extended period of time. Spring, summer is a little truncated. And I'm like, well, it sounds like a one up for me. Like, cool. So literally, like, I'm busting my butt. Like, I'm doing good at scheduling, but I'm not understanding this Poindexter guy. Like, I don't know. Like, look, I don't think he knows my name to this day. I don't know if I'm not even going to mention his name to this day. So again, a little chip on my shoulder, but this is what happened. Like, some of the professors were nice. Some of them were not super nice to me. They were nice to others, whatever. Like, it is what it is. School can be that way. Life can be that way. But I didn't care, like I'm just going to continue to pave my own way. That first semester did all my work. Ranks come out December. I mean, it's cold as crap. Like, Utah gets a different kind of cold, like biting cold. And I am, coming in, checking my rank on some of these finals assignments. And I'm looking like, oh, I'm at the middle of the road. I'm at the bottom here. And I'm like starting to freak out a little bit. A little bit of panic sets in because I'm coming to pick up these projects. Ranks are bad. And then I come to check my rank in the total class, and I am number 15. And like, that is not a lie. I might have saved the email. I do not know, but I'm 15, and I'm like, dang. And so I had called up a friend that I had met, like, that I'd been really close buddies with in the program for the first like 4 months or whatever. And I said, hey man, what rank are you? And he goes, yo, I'm 15. And I'm like, are they giving out multiple 15s? And he's like, you're 15 too? And I'm like, yeah. And it was just kind of something where we looked at each other. We're like, there's two things we can do. We can quit or we can just keep going. I'm like, there's nothing I'd rather do. Like, I want to be here. I came here for this. If it's not going to work out, I'm going back home. And so I asked some other people around, and I had some friends too. And they're like, oh, I'm 8. Oh, I'm 7. Oh, my one friend was like, I'm number 1. I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, he's, to get a kind of an idea of where he's at, like, the guy who's number 1 is now like a design director in New York City. So he's doing all right for himself. Yeah, so we like realized that, but then the second half of the semester, things started clicking. Man, it was going. And, I figured out pretty quickly what design was. I realized that, like, the mistakes I'd made in the first semester, I figured out how to like fix them in the next semester. One of the other professors I'd had that I hadn't had the first semester was like, man, so theoretical. And I like really jived with how he thought of things. Even though, I mean, he was a vegetarian, whatever, but like he just like saw things differently. He might be vegan. I don't know. It doesn't matter the story. Maybe it gave him superpowers. He was a great designer, right? And I could like really see like his method of thinking and how if you're methodical and you do things a very calculated way, that's design. Design is like calculation plus art and aesthetics. And I was like, oh yeah. So I'm locked in. I'm still doing good sketching. I've always kind of had that. I'm doing good renders. I always had that. And it turns out I aced the rest of the classes, and I'm like, okay, shoot, like, I've got this. So I started making a portfolio. Never done that before. It's kind of whack. Like, I'm trying to use the computers and like lay out pages and make everything look clean. And I was like, man, this isn't looking very good, especially because my first semester assignments weren't super great either. So I pinged my friend, Dan Shirley, and I was like, Dan, how's your portfolio looking, man? Like, it's midsummer, like we got to be getting these things in about a month and a half. And he showed me some of his, and I was like, well, that looks like a great format. And, I don't know if I ever told anybody this, but I snagged his layout pretty hard. And, Yep. So I was like, oh shoot, like this is what it's supposed to look like. But I would say Dan, his brother, was an industrial designer, so he had that kind of upper hand. So like luckily I learned in those first two semesters to like lean on people and take the collective knowledge and like try to use that to like feed into better things, like better designs. And they kind of talked about that like in class, but it was so hard to like look over people's shoulders and like what are they doing. And this is like a format like format of like competition that I've never like experienced, like art competition, like in a very real sense, like deciding destinies of kids who are just trying to be designers. It was intense. It felt every bit like a spring baking championship, or like like British Bake Off. Like it was just, you're trying to do your best thing, and you come to the end of the week or come to the next class and you show your stuff and it's either good or it's not. And you're like, oh crap. And classes are moving quick and whatever. Um, so anyway, like basically I aced it those last two classes, put my portfolio together, kind of copied Dan's thing, did my own thing with it. Like it's not like it was one to one, but it was, it was pretty close. But I luckily, like having like 8, 9, 10 weeks to kind of put everything together, I probably would still show that portfolio today. Like it was pretty good. Like I nicely scanned in like marker renders. I had nicely like created Illustrator files. I'd laid them all out in like a cohesive way. And like again, how I kind of started this is like this was the time for me to be BYU, because since that time they've changed the program to like you have to apply for the professional program after the end of every fall, winter, spring, summer. Like there is no like gap where you have all this time to like make your portfolio really nice. And I would say like had I come in at any other time, I'm not sure that I would have made the professional design program. Um, but as it stands, I printed everything out, got it looking real nice, dropped it in. Still not sure I was going to make it because I had no idea how they're choosing us. Just like nothing made sense, because it was like one of those design things where they don't exactly tell you how it goes. They just like kind of objectively put you where they think you are. And then I realized it had a lot to do with grades, and I was like, well, duh. Like I guess it should. And luckily, I got the A's that I need to get. And once you see like, oh, these people got the A's too in the class, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I did get A's with like the top 8 people, and it kind of made more sense. But I made it, and I'd say about like 12 of that original class made it as well, and then plus some spring summer people, and all made for like a pretty crazy awesome group of designers, all doing great stuff now. But man, when I got in, I remember where I was sitting. I remember like the time of day. I remember when I opened up the email and saw that I got in, saw congratulations. I basically went crazy again because I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have anything else. This was it. Um, and from there on, it was just like, how do I turn this into a career? I guess like what's next? And I think the internship thing really scared me, and because you're supposed to get an internship to graduate. And I had a hard time finding them. I had a hard time putting myself out because I didn't feel like the best designer, didn't feel the most confident. I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. When you get into design school, you're like, who am I? And I started putting my name out there, and like, again, it was one of those things where my bubble just like kept growing, where I'm seeing like, oh, like I can apply to, Whirlpool. I can apply to like these huge brands, and like, but nothing really like jived. Like, I didn't want to, like Xbox sounded cool, right? Like kind of appealed to the like the gamer inside of me, and furniture sounded cool. And I actually did get a furniture internship designing kids furniture for a brand called Sprout Kids, which was exciting. But my professor was so whack about it, because it was like the it was a startup and it wasn't like amazing, but I actually got product made. Like I had redesigned this guy's whole furniture line. Um, and so, I was like, again, one of those things where like again, like no one's going to believe in you. Like no one's going to like tell you you're doing the right thing. Like you gotta work and I just kept pushing anyway. And so I did this internship for about a year with Sprout, and it was super fun. I was working just with me and the owner. He was a really good engineer guy, made some cool stuff, and they were still reluctant to count it. Like my designs were made. Like I was holding them at the end of the day. I had them in my apartment. I had I was able to take them home, and it was amazing. And Sprout is huge now. It's such a cool thing. And so anyway, point is, like, I did furniture. It was fun, but it wasn't like the end all be all. It wasn't until I saw a sketch of shoes by Quentin Williams. I think we all know who he is, like kind of legendary, right? Like I think maybe like the first Coraflot shoe designer who was posting stuff. And I was just like, awestruck about, like, because I didn't know who Tinker Hatfield was. I didn't know these famous guys, but I did know Quentin Williams, and I was like, this stuff is awesome. And I'm seeing him draw Nike shoes. I'm seeing him like do these amazing renders, and like, shoes look real, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. And so that's what I want to do. And just from that time forward, I was like, oh man, shoes and industrial design connect. Like this is it. Like this is what I want to do. And my professors were like, nah, you don't want to do that. You want to stay in UX, UI, stay in hard goods. Don't do any of that stuff. And I'm like, he's like, that's fashion. That's fashion design. It's not industrial design. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And so I pushed pretty hard, and I got an internship my junior year with a brand consultancy in Salt Lake City called Modality. Now, Modality was a man by the name of Johnny Jensen. And a lot of you know who he is. He was excellent. Like as soon as I walked in that building and into that back studio, I watched him draw a couple times, saw some of his portfolio work. I was like, this is it. Like I'm a shoe designer. This is what I want to do. Watching him sketch, watching him present to footwear brands as they consulted was incredible. It wasn't until the end of the internship where I actually got to design some shoes and throw them out there that I was like, this was like incredible. Like I could have drawn shoes all day, every day, and not even thought about it. And I didn't know anything then about construction or anything, but it was a blast. And since then I thought, like, okay, he's doing that. I want to do that, but in my own way. And so I just kept going, kept making shoes my top priority. And in fact, we had this whole senior studio coming up after junior year. And basically they just said, hey, like you need to start thinking about what you want to do for a senior project. And we're going to give you the whole year. You just basically come in and you work on a project that you want to work on. We'll give you some stuff, some prompts. Like we'll have people come in and review your work, but really it's just yours. And I mean, the first thing I thought of was shoes. Like that's what I'm going to do. And so I started down this road and wanted to start making shoes. Kind of learned that in order to make shoes, like you need to, learn how to do some methods. You have to have a last. And before I knew it, like I'm buying my own lasts, I'm buying leather, I'm buying all this stuff. And, I'm starting to teach myself how to make shoes. And the catalyst for me was like, I was just kind of dinking around. Like I was making stuff, but I wasn't really like making good stuff. And, I shared the studio a lot with Dan Shirley and Aaron Puglisi, and Aaron had this kind of matter of fact way of talking, and I really appreciated it. And I think I kind of had the same kind of Laurel moment in BYU in the studio. And it wasn't until, I was making shoes and I was trying to cobble things together, and it was kind of looking weird and it wasn't looking clean. And, Aaron was just kind of like, what are you doing, man? This isn't that cool. And I was like, yeah. He's like, why don't you start laser cutting? Why don't you do all this stuff? Why don't you do this and this and this? And I was like, okay, okay, okay. Um, and he's like, well, what's your goal? And I was like, I think I want to get to like Nike someday. That would be intense. Like just be a Nike footwear designer. And he's like, well, if you want to do athletic shoes, like do athletic shoes, like show people you can do it. Um, and that was one of those moments where it just hit me like, if you want to be in this industry, like you need to know how to do it well, and have it click, like that you are passionate about this. And man, that kind of flipped the switch on the senior project where I was trying to do this whole bit about like, honesty or whatever I was doing about like making shoes like in a, considered way or whatever it is, like breaking down boundaries. Because I saw some basketball shoes that had a lot of foam and all this junk in it. And I thought, well, we can take out the blah, blah, blah. All that was kind of just junk. And basically because I hadn't even made a fully functional shoe yet. And there was no one there to teach me. So like I jumped on YouTube. I watched tutorial on tutorial from like people from Britain, like doing baroquing and like all this stuff. And finally, like I'm down. I'm laser cutting my patterns. I'm sewing them together. Basically, I'm looking at like Cole Haan shoes and like deconstructing them in my mind. And I'm thinking like, how do I rebuild this? And like, can I rebuild this without like going to this studio? Can I make this shoe? Um, and so like it just kind of got to the point where I'm like getting pretty good at like stretching leather, um, gluing things. I'm buying contact cement. I'm like heating it up. I'm sticking everything together. I'm hand sewing. I'm like laser perfing my leather, hand sewing everything together, adjusting eye rows and like different fits and features and stuff. And um, I bought my own last from Jones and Vining. I basically just hit a guy up and was like, hey, I'm Jake Jones and Vining. I worked the modality with this guy Gary and Tom and like all these people. Can you hook me with some lasts? He's like, yeah. Tell me what you want. He sent me some pictures. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. That looks good. I bought these lasts. I don't even know how much. It felt like 100, $200, and I've got 3 pairs of lasts now coming at me. Well, no, I bought 4. Bought some running lasts for women. I bought some running lasts and some dress lasts, and I'm, all of a sudden I'm making shoes that look pretty legit. It's actually on my Instagram. You can check them out. But just in that span of time of being at BYU, from Virginia, from everywhere I've come from, like sketching to being a designer to like really dedicating myself to footwear. And, I'm graduated. I get a job doing soft goods, another internship that turned into a job with the bag brand called Michi. Shout out. They're not around anymore, I don't think, but it was a fun time. I was just designing handbags, interchangeable handbags for women, and it was awesome. I enjoyed it, and but it wasn't what I wanted to be doing, but it taught me a lot of great things. I got to see stuff go out to the factory. I got to make tech packs and like got all that stuff going on. And then I actually presented my senior project, and it just so happened that a guy by the name of Casey Jarvis was there, who had worked at Nike, done some Steve Nash stuff, LeBron stuff. And he was like, yo, like, I saw your shoes. Like, for some reason, like I had handcrafted these shoes. I got them to the point where they were looking pretty like, legit. And I got them to the point where, you know, I had gone to like Vegas and looked up like a shoe display I thought was really cool. I made that display. I made it for my shoes to kind of sit on. It looked like a little shoe shop for the senior show. And like somehow, some way, like that, my shoes got kind of put front and center. Like like the walk into the show was like my shoes. And they looked polished, clean. Like I put my patterns out there, put everything kind of out there for people to see, like the laser cutting and everything, and like how I'd handmade these shoes. I was wearing a pair for like the presentations, and I mean, just kind of like an incredible moment. Um, and Casey came, saw my stuff, kind of took me aside during like some of the show and said, "Hey, like I want to talk to you about this. This is super cool." And looked at all my pattern and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I made my own stuff and made my own way to like welt shoes and put soling leather onto the bottom so I could do it by hand and it was pretty consistent." He's like, "Dude, this is crazy, like so cool." I'm like, "I don't know, I just wanted to make shoes, man." Like, and so it was, yeah, it was like kind of a game changer to have someone in footwear just say like, "You're on a interesting road." I'm like, "Cool." Didn't amount to anything, right? Like I never talked to anybody from Nike, never talked to anybody. Um, so I'm doing odd jobs. I get married finally. And after I get married, I get let off from the bag job. And then, um, I have to just start finding industrial design work. And so I find some work as an industrial designer for a local guy doing some odd jobs and kind of fun stuff. Like I did some pool floaty things and like, I learned how to sketch a little bit better from him because he was like director level and he was really sketching, like his sketches were phenomenal. Um, and then I was just like, but what about shoes? And I kept looking at stuff and I found pencil. Um, and I'd say like where I'm going to leave this story off is I applied the pencil twice and didn't get in. And I didn't really understand the application. Like I basically sent like thumbnail sketches of shoes in my application, only to realize like after looking up stuff that he wanted like a big sketch of a shoe, big render. Um, but again, like this all led up to something. Um, I got rejected from pencil. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But then the class after the first two I'd applied to was Adidas Futurecraft. And again, I was already like making shoes. I'd started my Instagram. I had that epiphany working with my other friend who was a designer from the industrial design program. I had this epiphany to like, I'm making all this cool stuff. Like maybe I should just, instead of making a portfolio, make it a public Instagram and just like flood my work onto the internet. And so I just started posting stuff on there, got some traction. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. But it wasn't until I saw that pencil application and it said, you have to hand make your prototype. And I was like, I've already got a couple of shoes made that I could use for that. But I designed a shoe and I built it and made it on my lasts, made it look as professional and real as possible, and applied to the Adidas Futurecraft thing. And you had to videotape yourself talking about it. Probably dig that up at some point. But I handmade this shoe in a basement with, contact cement, some leather I bought, and some foam. And like, yeah, before I knew it, I had made a shoe and got accepted and got into pencil. But again, as I look back, I just see all the things that like kind of clicked into place, like for me to be in the right place in the right time. And it was just, like taking those like kind of leaps, taking the advice, like when something came in that like really hit me strong, I was like, that's what I need to be doing. Like it just locked in, like go to BYU, make shoes, like make athletic shoes. And then following through and making shoes put me in the right place at the right time, be able to like hand make like an actual looking shoe. Like it looked, in my opinion, looked pretty good. Like, for just a guy, making stuff, in his basement, married only, a few months, having no money, by the way, not a lot to our name, but still trying to get it done and make my way into the career. Footwear is funny. It was even one of those things where her dad was like, how long are you going to be doing this? Like, how long are you going to, pursue this until you give up and try something else? And, my answer, and I think should be the answer if like you're looking to get in this industry, is like, I'm not going to stop. Like, Like once I found this is it. Like there is nothing else. I just want to be the best footwear designer I can be and get into these brands and make product. Um, and again, right place, right time, determination. Just having that, having like paved a way for myself, having the last, like it all just kind of like fit. And then before the end of Pencil, like I was already pretty much locked into Brooks. I had talked to Adidas, I talked to New Balance, I talked to Cole Haan, but ultimately it felt just in my heart that Brooks was the place to go. And that's kind of where I want to stop. But you look at that long trail, like I was kind of taking the path of least resistance. And then, kind of coming to myself in the middle there and saying, well, I got to do something. And then, having this understanding that there's life outside of you know, 20,000 population town, 20,000 people. It's come a long way. And really, I feel like I feel like I've been given a gift. My parents worked pretty hard to get my brother in my life in a pretty good spot. And so I felt in some way like a duty to kind of like do the next thing. And I'm just grateful to have even found that and found success and really just like grit my teeth and fought through a lot of anxiety, fought through a lot of like heartache. Going to BYU was tough. It was not easy. And just like kind of pushing through and seeing myself through some of those things, the hard times, being away from my family for so long. I mean, it was longer than the mission. Even though I went back and visited, it still was just like, it was just a long time. It was, hanging out with friends, having a great time, but also just like, it was the ins and outs of being a college student, being a single guy, and, it was like the best of times, worst of times kind of thing. But that is all to say that like, it's all, you create your own opportunities. Again, like no one ever had that vision for me. It's something I pursued myself. And I had a vision for my life after about the first couple of weeks of BYU. And I was like, this is where I want to go. And, just like have that vision for your own life and stick to it. I guess that's all I want to say about this in the bio episode. I think this one might stick. I've done 3 of these now, trying to figure out how to say it all in the best way. It's kind of long, a little rambly, but I don't care. I've said what I said. Memories come to mind as I talk, and I weave them. Weave them in. But yeah, just let you know, like I'm not from a big place. You don't have to come from somewhere to make it in this industry is what I'm trying to say. Like, you can find your way in time. And that's what I did. And I know that, like anyone can do it. I'm not special. Like I know I've put a lot of time into art and there's something there, but you can put a lot of time in. Anyone can put a lot of time in and get to the level you want to be. All right. That's who I am. Virginia boy, born and raised, chip on my shoulder all the time. It kind of keeps me fueled. But it's kind of the competitive nature. That's techpacksaredue. That's this episode. Bio episode. We'll move on. We'll do some other things next time. We'll have Colin back. Kind of talk through some stuff as well. But yeah, stay tuned. We got a lot more coming. Like, subscribe, tell your people. All right. Check you next time. Bye.